almost morbid fascination with anything and everything paranormal, especially those things that venture into the darkest recesses of our primal fears and spark the thoughts that for most would be the stuff of nightmares. In 2007, this fascination, along with some unexplainable experiences, led me to start a paranormal research team known today as Everyday Legacy Paranormal. Then in 2011, a road trip led myself and a close friend into the darkest places we had ever been. That was the beginning of Road Trip Paranormal. Now, while still active with them, I no longer lead either of those teams, but the people that make them up are the best friends a guy like me could ask for. Myself, along with Jason, Leo, Roth, Max, and Michelle are reaching out to share our passions for everything odd, fringe, and paranormal with the world. We are Cryptic Heartland.
And welcome back, everyone. It's been a week or so, something like that.
We were here last week. You were gone.
Yeah. It's been a crazy week this week, that's for sure.
Yeah, busy.
Welcome to the Cryptic Heartland podcast, where no subject is off the table, everything's fair game, and we're not afraid to poke the bear. I'm getting pretty good at that.
Stick.
Sorry. Got my Yankees bat for you.
Whatever you call it.
Don't bring a stick to a bat fight.
Anywho, okay, all right. Well, this is like Jeremiah said, this Cryptic Heartland podcast, episode number 49, getting to the big 5-0,
Wow.
Rose Age, and yeah, we got a bunch of new faces, some familiar faces, and
My God.
anywho, I am Leo. Is that loud? I'm Leo. To my left, you are
Jason.
Hey, Jason. To your left.
Gloria.
And to my right down below is,
Michelle.
and the guy in the, whatever that says on his hat, should be blurred out for obscenity. Growth. Oh, God. We got 2 hours, huh? Let's get started.
Got a
Oh,
Yankees fan, then you got an Angels fan off.
Oh, that's
the
right,
distance
yeah.
here.
We have a guest in the studio also, too, so, yep. Couple guests. So, I don't know where to begin. I'm tired. It's been a long, busy, but eventful weekend, and, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about anything, or you want to move on, or...
I don't know.
Okay. So no, well, I'll go ahead and do it. What we did this weekend is as many of you saw on our post and on the web pages, Nicole's Hope, we celebrated Nicole's life yesterday, and it was a beautiful, emotional, event. We did some stuff yesterday and today, and she's forever in our hearts, and forever in our minds, and we'll always keep that light shining bright, forever, and we miss her. I mean, what can we say? She was a special person to us, and I know to you especially, and James. But it was great knowing her for the time I had with her, and did some fun on investigations. First night saw True Nicole. She went to sleep in the car, so it was funny. That's how I met Nicole. She was here 1 minute, and then she was in the car. Like, where'd she go? And she's asleep in the car. She'll be okay out there. Oh, she'll be fine. That's what Jason was telling us. So. She was, at the time, studying in school, I think, too, and, trying to do multiple degrees and everything, and it just, oh my gosh, she was a warrior through and through, man.
Yeah.
So
10 o'clock hit.
she was done.
She was done.
I just remember it was rainy and muddy that night, and just sloshing mud everywhere, and she's sleeping like a baby in the car, That was our Nicole, right? So, yep, so we did that this weekend, and, yeah, just a lot of crazy stuff in the news too, man. Just that whole rescue and the attempt down in was it Thailand, or I think it is, with the soccer team that was trapped in the caves, and they've been there for a couple of weeks now, and just crazy stuff. And they got 2 or 3 boys out, I think, today. Maybe 4. 4 was it? Yeah. Just, man, you hope for the best for them because
Right,
it could be up to 4 months to get them out, and that's
Oh my gosh.
that's scary,
so
man.
did they end up doing the tube?
They
Are they working on that?
they're trying to do something because I know that the problem is there's narrow cracks to get through, and it keeps flooding with all the rain they keep having over there, and it rained hard over the weekend, I guess, and then it stopped, and they had enough where it was dry enough to get a couple of them out, and the people still have to wait. And yeah, I don't know, man. It's a risky, they're trying to get risky on what the
Did
word
they
is.
say how they got them out? Because I remember they were really worried about it because there was going to be a partial part of it where they had to be alone and not with the diver.
They have tanks. They were bringing them out with their tank. They're like, scuba gear, and there was part of it they had to take the tanks off and push the tanks through because it's narrow, and then they have to kind of whittle their way through. There's divers on there. I know one diver passed away in the beginning just trying to even get to them, and he was a Navy SEAL. So if that tells you anything, the risk they're facing, it's going to be a difficult overhaul, all said and done. But we wish them the best of luck, and it's crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy life in the world. So, before we get too involved with everything, the topics tonight and stuff like that, let's remind everybody at home, make sure you like our page, subscribe, to our podcast, and, you get notifications when we go live, which we go live throughout the week sometimes too. You never know, we may do a sneak peek investigation someplace, we might pop up, and I know we have some stuff in the works, trying to go live on throughout the week maybe or something, or on the weekend. So, make sure you like our page, just get notified when we come on, and tell your friends about it. So, but and also if you're feeling risque, call in. Our number's at the very bottom: 316-200-9066. Once again, that's 316-200-9066. We'd love to hear your guys' opinions. We want to take your guys' calls, ask questions. We want some suggestions. He said no. we want some suggestions as far as what we're gonna do. What should we do for our 50th episode coming up next week? We hope. So we want to hear your guys' opinions. So yeah. So what do you go? What's on the
Hey,
agenda?
just
Yeah.
right quick.
Go ahead, please.
We had a question come in just a little bit ago.
No, they can't answer it because they didn't call in, so they can't ask it.
Well, okay.
I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Well, we had a question come in just a little while ago. What were you guys talking about with the people being rescued and such?
Oh, it was in Thailand. The soccer team, they were going exploring a couple weeks ago. It was a coach and a 25-year-old coach, and I can't remember if the boys were what age they were 8 to 14 or something in that area.
Yeah.
And they were just out and about, as a team, celebrating, kind of having some fun, exploring some caves, and they got trapped. It's over in Thailand, and they've been trapped ever since, and with barely any food and water. They're getting supplies to them now, but I saw that the 4 that they rescued today, they had used up all their supplies for the day. I mean, to even get this far. So you think, okay, if I got 4 out, why can't I get the rest of them out? Well, because they used all the air up, all the resources they had, just things of that nature. So they're going to try again tomorrow morning, they said, to get some more out as much as they can. And now they have a game plan. They know that works, and they'll get the rest of them out in due time. But
Right.
it's risky, like I said, because it's supposed to rain again, they said, and that floods the crevices to get out that they're in. So it blocks it and
Right.
makes it a little bit trickier to get out. But yeah, it's just been a thing in the news that it's been interesting and sad at the same token. So hopefully get everybody out, and safe. But yeah, anything else anybody saw recently that was-
Something I saw recently
Okay.
that I didn't get to finish reading up on it was they had said that they actually found who D.B. Cooper was. And
Yeah.
I was wondering if you guys had seen that.
We talked
Who-
about it last
who
week.
what?
Oh, did you? Okay.
D.B. Cooper.
Oh,
They
yeah.
thought they have
Uh-huh.
they have a name that we've discussed on. I said episode 12. We talked about him on that episode, but then last week when you were gone, we talked about same thing. His name is Robert. I can never say Rackstraw.
Rackstraw.
I can never say it right. I always butcher it, and that's who they're thinking is him because he came out with a letter also, and that they've had in possession for a couple of years now, I think. That said, basically giving them clues that in so many words, I am him. You guys are doing. There is no D.B. Cooper. You guys are foolish, and basically he put some cryptic words in there that supposedly spells his name out in so many letters, and everything. And they had an FBI informant guy look at it who does that, codes and all that stuff for a living.
Right.
And he he's the one that said it says here his name's in here because pokes fun at the U.S. government and calls them morons and stuff like that, idiots and whatever else. And
Well, how old would he be by now?
Well, he's up there.
70s probably.
Yeah.
I think if I remember.
He
right.
was one of the first ones to be interrogated and asked and looked at a long time ago. They just couldn't pinpoint 100% that it was him and with evidence, so they just couldn't charge him.
Yeah.
So
Pull something in there.
I don't know. There was
somehow,
nothing
some
at
way.
the time
Right. That's true. That's what
in
the problem
the
was.
rules for
Right.
hijacking a plane.
Right. He's the one that set it off, kind of.
Pretty
one
much.
Of them, yeah.
Pretty much.
Yep.
No one
So-
ever thought about doing it.
So I got a question
Or
for you
actually had the
guys.
balls to do it.
This might
Yeah.
poke a bear or two in here, but I didn't know how to answer this question because the way when people make remarks to me over things, I really try to, before I just jump the gun, I try to sit back and go, okay, and think about it. And it made a little sense, but your two opinions mainly because of the history buffs that they are. So somebody actually brought that up at my work,
Right. What up?
the Cooper deal.
Oh yeah. I gotcha. Okay.
And they were talking about it, and one of the bigwigs were in there, and he said, he goes, why? I mean, he was a little irritated. He goes, the guy broke the law,
Mm-hmm.
and he did this and he did that. So why in the world would you give him any time of day? You think he's cool? You think he's great? And everybody just of course, because he was
You
know,
say
up
yes.
there,
I
everyone's
agree
like,
100% with
"Yeah,
you,
I
sir.
agree
Whatever you
100%,
say, sir."
And
Yeah.
he goes, it makes me sick
Yeah.
that you people sit there and brag about him and you think it's so cool, but yet he broke the law. And I was like, so I just thought I'd bring that up.
Well, it makes me sick that CEOs and all these higher up in the company take so much money and thievery from everybody else and all the employees, So where's that kind of fit into their opinion? I don't really care about
Did
their
you ask
opinion.
that question? Earl?
No, but I would say because he went in school and did the right thing, and that's why he's in the position that he is.
One thing about
D.B. Cooper did not do that.
The one thing that was going on with the Northwest, I think it was Northwestern Airlines at the time, they were cutting jobs. They were dropping people left and right. They were cutting in people's, I think it was either their salaries or their retirement. They're doing some awful things to their employees. So when it was hijacked, a lot of people were like,
Yeah.
good job.
Got
Like a
behind
Robin
him.
Hood thing.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
like a
like
Robin
the
Hood thing.
Yeah.
And he was actually polite throughout the whole ordeal.
So if somebody robs a bank and they're really polite, it's
Well,
okay.
it's not. I'm not talking about bank. I'm talking about D.B. Cooper,
Yeah.
and your higher upper who was saying how he was. I'm not saying the guy was right, and he should. Had it been they did their job and they found him soon after it happened, then sure, arrest him. He deserves to go to jail. He hijacked it, but they have no evidence of him actually having a bomb.
But did he really hijack? I mean, come on, he did
All-
what he had to do and left.
All he did was
You know.
open up his briefcase, showed some wires. It could have been nothing. And then ordered a drink. He when they landed to get all the money and the parachutes, he asked everybody if they wanted a sandwich. You guys want food? You guys want food? You guys hungry? Actually, and everyone's like, no, we're good. And he's like, okay, you, and you get off. Pilot, co-pilot, and the stewardess, you guys stay on. Let's take back off. And then he jumped.
Yeah, he wasn't threatening anybody.
He wasn't
Yeah,
threatening. He was
just-
actually polite during the
Yeah.
whole moment.
Yeah.
All they had to do was tackle the guy, open up his briefcase, and it probably wasn't a bomb, but it was probably stuff he needed to do the parachute and do the goggles and everything he needed. Most likely.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say we're glorifying it by talking about it. I mean, we can have an opinion on it. It's just that we're intrigued by it. I mean, here's one of America's mysteries that's never been solved. And who is this guy? Is it you? Is it somebody down the street?
It goes right back to the Alcatraz escape.
Yeah,
The three guys, they're criminals. They deserve to be there.
right.
But we're fascinated by the fact that they could not be found.
Yeah.
Or
Or body,
Yeah.
or nothing.
Or Jack the Ripper, or
Yeah.
Jill the Ripper, whichever it
Yeah.
may be, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, heck, even here in Wichita, BTK at the
Yeah,
time when they
yeah.
We don't-
resurfaced, you know,
People
it's
are
like,
people are
I
fascinated
was
by it
frightened
because
and fascinated by the same token, because
Yeah.
this guy's still roaming around, and
It's,
now he's back.
It's
at
the
that time.
it's the intrigue of what people did to last so long in their story, and the story lingers, so it just becomes part of your life.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not glorifying.
Right. And it's the same
But
thing.
it's intriguing.
Also, too, at a car wreck, everybody's rubbernecking, gawking.
Mhm.
Everybody knows you shouldn't look at that stuff. That's
Yeah.
horrendous. Somebody's life is at risk or in danger, but yeah, you still want to see what's going on. What's
Yeah.
it's the same type of mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody likes that stuff. I hope, but but yeah, no, that's all good questions, and yeah, we did talk about it last week. That's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, I know you didn't see it last week, but yeah, we were. Cause that's when we first heard about it that weekend. I think when they first
Yeah.
that Friday or something, Thursday or Friday, brought it up in the news, and Jason's like, "I want to talk about that." It's like, okay, let's talk about it. No, it's curious. I mean, to see maybe this is the guy and get some kind of closure. Like even Roth asked last week. He's like, okay, if it is him, and they say 100%, he comes out and says it is. How do you guys feel about that? Is your momentum or is your thought process going to change in that? We're like, no, that's just into chapter 1. Now chapter 2 is where you been all these years. What have you been doing with your life? How'd you escape? How'd you do? I mean, there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
He
That's
is-
the next
With the
chapter.
money.
He
Did you
escaped
end
by
up with the
jumping.
money?
Apparently, he didn't do much with it. I mean, he didn't take that much. At the time, it was a lot, but nowadays, it's not.
Right.
He's living a modest life. Apparently, I mean, this guy, if they look him up, I mean, he's not in a huge house. He's not doing. He's just living a normal, average Joe life.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions I would like to have answered.
Mhm.
And maybe he did it just to see if he could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just the first half of the book. There's many more
Yeah.
to come if that is in fact him. But
You never know.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, you don't know. You don't know if it's him or not or anything like that.
Well, you have people posing as other people all the time, and you don't really. I mean, even like through history, like Anastasia from the
Yeah.
Russian czars and all that, and they finally, after she died, they finally figured out that
Yeah.
years later with DNA that she wasn't.
right.
You know?
Yep.
So you have all kinds of people trying to cash in on somebody else.
Exactly.
So
Somebody else's fame.
yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, to think that somebody like that's out there, possibly. Well, is.
Yeah.
Because they've never really pinpointed, but just the what ifs. What if
Yeah.
this is the guy? But I don't know. It's crazy. Yeah. No, good question then, or a good topic. I mean, we could go hours upon that, and we've done
Yeah.
it before. Yeah, it's easy to talk about.
Yeah.
So.
I'm kind of over it. Let's move on.
No, keep talking about it. And then there's this one time when D.B. Cooper. Shut up, Rose. With your dumb hat on.
who asked you?
he must have something he wants to talk about.
Yeah. I'm one of those guys that's like, let's move on.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
No, I know. I'm gonna make you block that.
But no, when
NY off
you
your
talked
hat.
about that last week about, I never looked at it as in, let's, it would be interesting to find out
Yeah.
if it was him, and he knows that he can't get in trouble to tell a story.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
I mean,
trust it.
yeah, I mean, they've already even said it on TV that the statute of limitations is over. There's nothing anybody will and can do to you. So why not come out? And that's been being broadcast for
What
the
if that's
last
just a
several
clever
years.
ruse though to get him to come out? Okay, now I know that's the case. I'm coming
I
out. It's
don't
me.
know.
And then, oh, by the way, we were to tell you about this one law that in
Yeah,
effect that we
exactly.
can get you on, and now you're
Federal
going to
government can do
prison.
whatever they want.
Yeah,
when they
I wouldn't
want,
trust it.
so,
I mean, that's just me.
Yeah.
But
But they also have the law set in order
Yeah.
that a certain time, certain acts, certain whatever. Once that time frame is gone, they can't do anything. They really
I don't
can't do
know
anything.
that I would want people to know. Can you imagine? I mean, your life would turn upside
Are you kidding me?
down.
There's a whole town that
got-
celebrates you.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
but
could
still,
walk in with your
there's-
sunglasses and stuff.
You could be a
and just
celebrity in
like,
the
you're a
States.
celebrity.
you know,
Local celebrity, cash in on it. Yeah,
You
it's
know?
me. I'll tell
You
you.
could walk in, sign some autographs.
she'd make millions pretty
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
But on your whole CEO thing too, I
Mhm.
mean, look at Jesse James. And people
The
glorify
biker
him.
or the
No, that. The gunfighter or
Yeah.
whatever, the stage
outlaw.
coach robber, the outlaw.
Yeah.
I mean, people to this day, and that's been like
I'm a huge Jesse James fan.
You know. So,
Okay, where were you at last week? Did we talk about them too?
Yeah, we're just going back we're going back. We already
Okay.
talked about all this.
It went from that to
I'm
that.
just getting
It's
those
funny.
vibes and
That's
feeling those
hilarious.
off of
Yeah.
you.
No,
and,
we
you
actually
know.
talked about that last
Yeah.
week.
Okay.
Well, we had some dowsing rods, right?
Yeah.
I did that too last week. So. No, yeah. I mean, we talk about all that stuff all the time. We love, like I said, like
Well, I've been
Rose
out
said,
of
we love history, man, and it fascinates us to think that all these people did all these bad things, but yet they're still, to me, they're kind of cool. I think, like Jesse James too. We talked about.
Well, I mean,
Well,
a little
okay,
wider,
so
so
I think deep down, if most people are honest, they're going to have some aspect of, wanting to beat the man or whatever.
Yeah.
Beat the system.
Yeah.
Some sort of rebellion in their soul, deep down somewhere, hidden away as it may be. If people are honest, they have that. And that's why it fascinates us. That's why it fascinates us. I'm not glorifying it or
Right,
anything
right.
like that. I'm not saying anything's right, but it still fascinates us to read about these people that never got caught. That, went years before they got caught. Beat the statute of limitations maybe, or
but we only know of certain individuals like Jesse James or
Mhm.
through media.
Mhm.
yeah, they glorify it as much.
And they only want you to think of them in a way that they want you to think about them. So
Right.
that there's actually, do we really know the personality of Jesse James or Billy the Kid? No, you read their own handwriting, their own letters, and they're like just normal guys
Yeah.
who are like, I wasn't there, I didn't do this, but I'm getting blamed. Billy the Kid said that many times.
Right.
Writing letters to his friends, family, or relatives, or whatever, and saying, I wasn't even there in the state, but I'm getting blamed for
Right,
this. But the
right.
media wants you to believe everything that they want you to believe.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
movies glorify.
Well, I'm just saying, from like even back then, like the media back then, wanted posters, all this person is
Right.
bad, evil, okay, prove it.
Yeah.
For one,
Yeah, that's
prove
it.
it.
Well, that's
And you don't know what the situation was at hand.
Yeah. That's
So-
the way the media has always been. It's the way the media always will be.
Yeah.
It still is today. They sell it. They sell an agenda.
Yeah, it's always an
know,
agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why they always report the most horrific
Mhm.
things, because it's like, who wants to hear about that, whatever, mass shooting at a school versus,
Right.
okay, you're about your little grandma, who knitted the sweater for somebody, I mean,
Mhm.
it's that.
Yeah.
To them, it's that,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But what also is funny is as fast as they are through with them. Last page, last week's news is no more. I mean, you don't hear about BTK hardly ever until something.
An anniversary.
Yeah,
maybe.
or a book that's coming out or whatever. He speaks in prison.
Right.
You don't hear about that until it's fresh off the press, so to speak. It's funny how they get rid of things that quick.
They kept him really quiet.
Yeah.
They haven't allowed. I don't think he's not allowed to
No.
to give interviews or anything.
Yeah. No. Well, there's those new laws on the books that keep people from profiting
Yeah, that's what it
from
is.
crime.
Mhm.
Like a serial killer can't publish an autobiography because it would allow them to profit from their crime.
Right.
That type of thing. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I'm all for small government, but I think those laws are justified. That
Yeah.
should be.
Yeah,
That's the way it
that's
should
right.
be.
Yeah.
But then too, they said he reveled in what he did. And he
Mhm.
enjoyed it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so doing that kind of stuff, regardless of money, would be,
Oh, he'd do it
pleasurable
without
for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
Just for the
So-
fame.
Just the way he got caught proves that
Oh, yeah.
because he missed the spotlight and the limelight so much. He couldn't help himself.
Yeah.
So
So next.
so what?
Sorry, we're laughing because we talked about that last. This is all this is a review of last week's
Yeah.
podcast. In case you didn't know.
Okay, well, somebody pick
no, it's
something.
just
Yeah,
funny
we
because you
are,
guys
we
are
are.
here, so you guys.
We are.
Okay.
It's hilarious to us. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, go ahead. You had the topic.
That's all right. Well, I mean, it kind of actually. Speaking of glorifying, my thing was, I know some people watch the the Ghost Hunter shows, the Ghost Adventures, things like that. On last week's episode of Ghost Adventures, they, speaking of glorifying, and profit off of something horrific or whatever, somebody else's benefit, is my question is what is your guys' stance on well, I'll just say on Ghost Adventures. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Mark and Debbie Constantine.
Yep.
Constantino, whatever.
Yeah.
They had the murder suicide, on them. They used to be on the show a lot, and well, last week's episode they went back to the old, what's it called, the old Washoe Club, whatever the old, the original documentary was at in Nevada,
Yeah.
back to that hotel again. And one of the last times they were there was like maybe 2009, and they had Mark and Debbie Constantino there with them in the
Gotcha.
in the flesh. Well, now this tragedy happened from that time period to now. They, the whole murder suicide with them.
See, I'm not
Happened.
familiar with that.
They
so
were
I-
Mark and Debbie Constantino. They were well known in the paranormal field for being supposedly some of the top EVP specialists out there. They were famous, and they've been on every paranormal show you can think of. But they were real close with Zach and all them guys off of Ghost Adventures. Well, like I said, they've been on the show many times. They were in 2009. They went to the old Washoe Club in not Las Vegas, and I think it's in Nevada. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here, but and they had some crazy things happen, and they would go even after the show was over, they'd go back to this place, and they're out different places, and they would capture all kinds of crazy stuff. Well, on this last week's episode, Zach and them returned for the first time since they'd been there with them, and they didn't come out and use that tragedy of them
Mm-hmm.
to boost ratings, but they kind of did.
Right.
They mentioned them. They had things happen. They supposedly caught her voice, which it sounds a lot. If you ever know who she is, it sounds a lot like her voice. Now, could it be fed into there? Yes, it's TV. But my question is how do you guys feel about people glorifying or cashing in on other things such as that, using a tragic event that they knew was tragic to boost their own show and their ratings and their viewership?
Right.
I mean, how do you guys feel? Is it okay to do that, or is it sick and demented?
Yeah, that's a sticky situation. You guys talk, because I could talk on that for.
Your opinion matters. I mean, jump on in.
It's okay. So my
So I
thought
have a
is,
follow-up to this,
okay,
that's
so
why I asked.
everywhere there's a story that needs to be told,
Mhm.
and that's my viewpoint
Yeah.
on that and how to handle it properly. If you go about it, if just with the attitude and the desire to just share the story with
Right.
people, that needs to happen in a lot of cases. I think of course, barring situations where people don't want the story told,
Right.
genuinely out of just privacy or whatever. Okay. However, I don't trust Zach Baggins as far as I can throw him
Right.
to actually keep that honest.
Right.
Whether he says that's what he's doing or not, that douchebag was profiting off of that tragedy.
Oh, yeah, of course he was.
I believe that with all my heart.
Right.
And
I'm not a fan.
No.
I mean, he's very disrespectful to the dead. I do not like that, the way he does his stuff. I think I think he will get his comeuppance.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
But and no, it's not right to cash in on the dead.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jeremiah.
It was just it was just inevitable that he was going to do it.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, see,
And well, especially as closely as they worked for some time,
Right.
but
my opinion on that is, I think, and I'm a little different when it comes to that stuff. I think, me personally, we're a team.
Right.
And I think anything that I do from the moment I met you guys to present, it affects everybody. Okay, it affects my family, it affects my team, it affects your family, everything. But if you look at it in a different way, there's going to be somebody that's going to do it.
mhm.
Right.
Well, yeah.
I would expect somebody like him to go out and do it. And there's a
Right.
lot of people that are going to watch it because it interests, just like you say in history, it like with, with Cooper and with like Jesse James, like you said, everybody wants to hear the story behind it if possible.
Yeah, so
I
somebody's
think
going to
it's-
tell the story.
Yeah, just
one way or
like
the
when you
other.
said, oh, if you heard the voice, it sounded kind of like her.
It did. I
and
heard her voice enough to know what it sounds like.
I think it depends on who you are. If you're on your own and you want to be somebody that's out there, you're going to push the outer limits. And I think
Right, of course.
we're going to probably see even more than that pushed
Yeah, that's
soon.
just chapter one.
Because
of many.
you can only do this for so long. And you,
Right.
like the ghost hunt, they run out of stuff to do.
Right.
And so he's going to have to start pushing those outer
Sure.
limits. And this might be one of the only ways he can do it,
Right.
is
To
crossing
keep,
those lines.
to keep the interest.
But to
viewers,
him,
yeah.
he doesn't care. But to us, you know, it's cool because this is what we do, and it'd be interesting to hear the evidence that he has.
Well, that's my next question. How is that any different than what we do in our paranormal field lives all the time? When we go to a location, try to speak to somebody who's passed on, possibly, or debunk, you know, what's going on in that. Not always. We don't try to prove the hauntings. We just
It's
try to
not-
capture.
It's not any
evidence.
different.
But we're not.
Really.
The thing is, we don't cash in on it. We
We're
don't
not
glorify
cashing.
it. But we, I mean, in essence, we kind
But
of.
the difference is
are.
people come to us and they ask for help.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
Sometimes, not
and
always.
one of the things they do is we ask them is, what do you want
Yeah.
from us?
Of course. What we'd like to see
Okay.
happen, right?
But we're not
And-
cashing in on
No,
somebody's
and that's-
suicide,
We're not
death,
sensational.
murder,
Exactly. Thank
stuff
you.
like that.
That's-
We're not.
That is the difference.
We live in Wichita, and we're not going over to the areas of where the BTK did a murder and trying to glorify on this is the
Right.
spot. Let's see what we can capture. You know,
Right.
what about the shooting of the Carr brothers? We're
Right.
not going out there to the field and trying to
Right.
see what is happening, because there's been people who have asked us, you know, oh, you need to go out there. You need to go out there.
Right.
No, out of
Right.
respect to the people who were murdered and died like that, not going to.
No, that's okay. Now, I personally wouldn't be opposed to visiting those sites, but no one will ever know about it outside of this group or anyone that may be with me. No one will ever know about it
Yeah.
Right,
because
right.
that's not what that's about. That is just a personal sense of curiosity to me. But I will say, you know, like you were saying, Jason, we're not. The way it differs is like you said, we're not trying to cash in on things. We're not going to try to, you know, blow up ratings or
Right.
you know, just get viewers. You know, the vast majority of our audience doesn't even know about most of the stuff that we do.
True.
We're very careful about anything that we put out there. You know, we always have permission for it.
Right.
Very respectful in that regard, because it doesn't matter to us. I mean, yeah, we've all talked about it. It would be nice to make a living doing this one of these days, but not at the expense of our integrity.
Yeah.
Well, and that goes back to the respect thing. I mean, because we've had that discussion, a few of us, about, you know, respecting those that have moved on to the beyond,
Mm-hmm.
and respecting their families, whatever legacy they might have, and you know, it's different than when you're trying to make a buck,
Right.
or trying to, you know, get your claim to fame. That's I find that very vile, you know, and true, when we have people that say, you know, something's going on, can you, and to me it's more about trying to help those people on both sides, you know, what's on the other side, what are they doing, why are they there, you know, what is it that they need that they're trying to communicate to the other side. And then you have the people like in their homes that are like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on, do I need to move, or, you know, and you want to help them to be, okay, should they be afraid? Shouldn't they be afraid? Is this somebody that they know, or is this somebody that's
Right.
passing through, or something that happened here? So there's a whole lot of variables there.
But you know, it does come down to respecting the other side, but the other side sometimes doesn't respect us
True.
in that fashion, with hurting or physical abuse and stuff like that. There's things out there on the other side that we are having to deal with to try to figure out what's going on too, because you know, we can do all the respecting we want to, and if you want to totally respect something, you know, just don't do this.
Right. True.
Oh,
But you know, the other side doesn't have that complete total agreement with you about being respectful either, because there are things that do hurt people and come out and
And that's-
destroy families and stuff like that.
Okay, and my thing is too, okay, we say we're gonna help you and we're gonna, you know, try and send them, where are we sending them? You know?
Well, and you
I
got
want
to-
you, I want you to go where you be happy.
I mean, who says
I've
we
got-
do though?
Well,
Yeah,
here's
I mean-
the thing though.
I mean,
There's
but-
no proof of that.
We were really close to
Exactly.
that about 2 weeks ago in an investigation that we
Right.
went to. We actually communicated with a lady, and I was so excited because she was communicating with us, and found out that she was attached to a certain item that was in the home, and I was so ready for this, because the next question was, what do you want from us? Do you want to be moved somewhere? Where can we help you? And you know what? Ended up, she wanted to stay there. And
Now
we
you
asked
say
her-
she, you're talking about the entity.
Yeah,
You're not talking
yeah,
about the
well,
person.
yeah,
But-
the entity that we were talking.
But there's no
to.
guarantee whatever we would have did would have
Right.
maybe
But
moved her on, or
it would have
even
been so
can.
awesome if
Yeah.
she would have come out and said, "I'd like to go home" or something,
Right.
and that would have been a neat new
But,
chapter
but
in our
that,
life.
you
know.
don't know what you're, I mean,
Well, Michelle, you
don't
don't
know
ever
that.
know, but what we do,
I
we
know
have
that,
to go
but
with
Is
I
that
what
this question?
it
That's why I
says.
asked it.
I mean, if we're talking to somebody and we feel like this is the best communication that we're doing, and that person were to say, you know, I used to live here, or I used to, you know, this is where I'd like to go. If I have an opportunity to take that item and return it, and I can maybe help that person, then I did my job.
okay, Jeremiah, let me ask, okay, when you
Yep.
cleanse a house, okay?
Yes.
or something, where are you sending that?
I may not be sending anyone anywhere.
Are you just-
when you
What
go
are you
through
doing
and
when you cleanse a house?
cleansing a house is totally different. That's a completely different scenario than crossing someone over the veil. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cleansing a house is not doing nothing but removing and neutralizing negative energy.
It's like eviction.
What's that?
I think of it like an eviction. It's
Yeah.
like you go somewhere else, but you can't stay here. You know, I mean, so
Right.
you know, maybe they go
It's-
next door, maybe they go down the block, but they can't stay here.
Right. And well, and that would be like if you know, if we were crossing someone over or just removing an entity from a place. But yeah, cleansing a house is just nothing but it's just removing and neutralizing negative energy. That's all it's doing. So that because okay, so you got to think of the psychological end of it. Okay, you're talking about spirits. They still have psyches just like we do.
Exactly.
And there's a psychological aspect to it. If they're exposed to negative energy all the time, they're going to have a negative, you know, outlook and negative actions, and they're going to be more apt to be foul and malignant.
Well, and that goes back to the respect. There's a
Mhm.
reason that they don't respect you. They have a reason. It's just like they're people.
Are you
They
talk-
are people. It's like there's a reason that they don't respect you. It's either
Well,
something
so
someone else has done or that you've
Are you
done.
talking?
or...
Are every spirit is a spirit like of a human?
No,
or-
no.
okay,
That's not
okay.
true either. Because
Because we all know that people. Because we all know people suck, you know, and we're not
Well-
going to respect each other all the time, no matter what. That side or this side. So you know, it's a battle between each other.
It can be.
Yeah,
But then,
so-
okay, like the lady that wanted to stay, then she needs to know that the rules of that house.
And that's what we
because
did.
that's
That's what
you know.
Warren ended up saying is, okay, if you're gonna stay here, then this is what you need to do. And she ended up being okay with that. And
Yeah.
it was pretty cool,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know, how it turned out, so.
One of our viewers, Stephanie, asked, "Can you force out a spirit out, or do they have to be willing to leave?" Now, once again, we're not landlords. We can't evict a spirit. I mean, and it's because we say, "Okay, you got to go," doesn't mean they're going to listen to us. What we've done in the past, and it's been on multiple cases, we go in there to a location to prove, or not just say disprove, just to prove, you know, hey, you do have what you say you have here. I mean, this is the evidence we collected that we don't doctor, we don't do anything to it. This is the raw evidence that we're presenting to you of this existence. Now, that being said, even if they say, well, can you get it out of our house? Well, doesn't mean we're going to be able to, because this thing's here for a reason. We can try to make them understand, or even, like I said, be comfortable with living in that surrounding to understand, okay, we've been a case out of Hazelball, I think you know what I'm talking about. They were terrified of this thing that was living there,
Right.
from the, you know, the father down to the, you know, the child.
Mm-hmm.
And after we got there and we had just some closure on some things, just, you know, them experience it firsthand with us, side by side, and then seeing the evidence that we collected, it's just like, oh, okay, I can live here. I
Right.
can understand. I feel relieved. It's like the sheet fell off their eyes, basically, you know, and
Right.
it's just like, oh.
Well, we
Makes it easy.
went through that with the case in Halstead too.
Yeah.
With the first go around with that.
Right.
The only thing that I would say in response to that is it tends to be more of, when you're talking about human spirits,
Mm-hmm.
it tends to be more of, you know, if you can't really force them to leave because they have the freedom of choice just like we do.
Sure.
Okay, but there have been times when they needed to leave and we just resorted, not this group in particular, I myself have resorted to helping the people, the living people that live there, make the environment so inhospitable for them that they eventually just left, just out of being, just tired of the environment. And but that's not, that takes a little bit of energy work, if you will. It also takes it takes psychological training for the living people there. It's more than just a quick fix, going in and throwing around holy water and burning some sage and we're done here. None of it. I don't care what kind of entity you're dealing with. None of it works like that. I don't care what the movies say, ever. Period.
So I remember you guys telling me a story before I was on the team, and I should know the place, but I don't. It's the one where it was the farmhouse, I think, and there was a lot of stuff going on, and it's where you could see stuff coming and going across the street between the trees.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember you guys said there was a certain person, I think it was either a woman or a child, or somebody, you guys said you're not allowed here anymore.
Right. That's a child,
Okay,
yeah.
so it left, but it hung around outside by the like the driveway type deal.
Right.
It
And
was like
waiting to come back in. So this is the part Michelle was going to tell you about, is maybe this would help answer your question.
My question was answered.
Okay, so when you do say goodbye, leave, okay, it just left the house, but from what I've been told of people that can see and sense these things, it was at the corner of the driveway though, but waiting to be let back in, but it just stayed there.
I find in those circumstances just to ignore them.
Well,
Like, they don't
Well,
exist.
we didn't ask it to leave per se. The owners said, I would like it not to mess with my children anymore, and so
Yeah.
all we asked of it, if you're going to be inside the house with this family, you need to be respectful of their privacy, their space. Don't torment the children anymore. Or if you can't do that, we need you to go out and leave this property, leave the house. And it actually worked in that case. So it was, as far as we know, they told us, things have been different in the house. It's been more pleasant. Our daughter doesn't see this entity anymore. But the weird thing is what they said they saw it by this tree on the property, not inside the house. So they asked us for that one night, and we came back the return time to go out there and go ahead and it's okay for it to come back in the house and for this evening only. So we tried as best to our knowledge, went out there, and it was Jason, myself, and Ben, used to be on the team. We went out to this house, or the corner of the lot, and said, okay, talking to thin air here, if you're still here, because we didn't physically see you at the time. If you're here, you're allowed to come to this house this one night only. This is the rules. You need to follow it. Now, if you can't abide by the rules, don't come in. Or, if you come in here and start causing problems for this family, we're going to take it to the next level and maybe try to help you move out of the house or get out of the house or whatever the words were. And it seemed to be working, because as we were walking in, caught one of the EVPs, it's like a little girl. She was like, I'm sorry, and like kind of crying, like, I'm sorry for what I've done. Yeah, I didn't mean to, and whatever you want to take from it, But in fact, she was coming in with us. We could hear her walking in, which is weird. It was just, the whole thing was
and we got this
unique.
on recording, so you can
it's
actually
all
hear her.
documented. So
How much time passed between that visit and then you guys coming back and they go, oh yeah, bring her back in?
it seemed like it was very quick, because they kept having other things going on. It just wasn't the little girl. It was other things in the house.
It was like, what, a month or
If even
or
that.
so.
It seemed like they were calling us back almost every other weekend. You guys come out here. Then
So
you
that's
do this and
interesting.
that.
So
Right,
it's
yeah.
possible, and maybe you can shine a light on this. So possibly that person or spirit was just hanging out, waiting
Well, and
to
that,
be let back in when that person never knew if these guys were ever coming back again. So they sit at a corner of a tree and just wait.
Well,
There's
You
no-
know, I
there's
mean,
no
you know what I'm
time on-
saying? You know where I'm getting at?
there's
It-
no time on the other side.
Not saying she was just sitting by the corner. She was like moving around the property, the land, and everything.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
what I meant. Like
But
maybe
yet-
she just stayed in the area.
Maybe she
and
just,
then,
out
thank
of
God you
respect
guys
to
came
them.
back.
Out of
It's
respect to them,
interesting.
maybe.
But she may not have been the problem. It may have been the other stuff on the property that we found out was there also on the course
Mhm.
of.
Because it morphed to something else later on, where that little girl spirit or whatever you want to call her was actually being tormented by something else that was older coming in and was doing things to it.
Yeah, things that were
It's a
just
weird
insane.
story.
Yeah.
It's a weird story, but it I mean, we'd have to explain the whole
It's always
situation to you
fascinated me.
Well,
to
no,
tell you
because
how it all went down.
it's
But
something that I have mentioned even to my children and with different things where you do have sometimes there's more than one and there is a domination. And the thing is that you want to make sure, I mean, that whoever's dominating is in your best interest. That's just like some of the things that I've had in my house. Everybody's like, why don't you clean that out? I'm like, no, because it's dominant and we coexist nicely. So if anything else tries to come in, that thing's going to go, these are the rules. If you don't like it, you're out. And I
Right.
don't have to deal with it
Right.
because he doesn't.
Right.
You know? So now, the only time we run into something, it would be if something bigger came in. And I haven't experienced that, thankfully.
Thank
But it's
That'd be an interesting fight.
but it's nice, you know. I mean, and there are certain we've had situations where even like a company that has come in that I can tell if they're like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I don't like this person, or oh yay great, you know. I mean, which has been interesting, but you can tell when something else shows up that there is a change in dynamics. In the feel of the house and things that go on, but I'm always appreciative of that one that, like I said, gets along with the family, and doesn't allow the others. But that's in that case with the little girl and the other thing. Then that's very, very possible, and that's something that happens. Unfortunately, the one that was dominant was not nice, and so that's bad for the family and bad for the other little girl entity.
Well, and what's unique in this case that we're talking about, you're referring to, is just the little girl appeared to the living little girl at the time. I mean, she's alive still, don't get me wrong, but the things. Okay, so the owner, her dad had passed away not too long before that. She thought he felt like he was there at times too, but there's something else that was even stronger than all of that, that seemed to be controlling the mood of everybody, what occurred in the house itself, that seemed to be a lot darker and edgier. That
there are 6 total entities that were
Oh.
witnessed
Oh, wow.
in the house and on the property.
the thing is, I didn't think, and the only thing I can't pinpoint and haven't been able to because we haven't gone back, because we can't, is what if it's just one major one doing all of it,
Could be.
projecting itself out in this manner
Why not?
to reach out to, okay, the little boy, you know, has an imagination, the living little boy has an imagination, let's, you know, become Indian folk that they see. The little girl, you know, sees another little girl I can touch base with, you know, and connect with. Her parent, maybe it's her dad, maybe it's not her dad. I'm trying to gain your trust and become this thing that's special to you, knowing that you had this tragedy in your life that I want to connect with you on. And then for the husband, it was just, I'm taking over your life, basically. Because
Right.
he became a lot more aggressive and distanced himself from us more and more. The more we went back, he wouldn't even come to talk to us. And
Some of the more, they don't generally, in my experience, you don't generally see that type of behavior out of human spirits, but
Right.
there are some more malignant inhuman spirits that can behave like that, you know, and
Right.
I have witnessed that. So
and we thought that was a poltergeist, remember? So if that's the case, you ever seen the movie? The movie wasn't that far off from, you know, I'm going to gain your trust, but I'm also
Right.
going to torment your family, you know, by doing
Right.
these things. The little girl, they sucked in on the little girl, and they tormented the rest of the family by doing different things to each one of them and single them out. But they gained the trust of the little girl to open that doorway.
right.
And that's kind of what this was, too,
And it was,
in real life.
what, about 5-6 years ago when we did that case? At least.
Yeah, I can't remember.
And, you know, the family has broken up since then,
Mhm.
and the mom and the daughters went
To different state.
went to a different state, and I was actually contacted by her, and apparently it's happening again where they're living,
Right.
out of state, not here in Kansas. So
Right.
something's happening again. So I helped her. I helped push her in the right direction of
Mhm.
someone who could help. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
whatever it is still possibly still, you know.
Still lurking, yeah. Never,
Yeah. Right.
never gone away. Just maybe waiting and hiding.
Right,
or,
right.
hiding in wait.
Yeah.
And now it's the perfect time to reach out again.
Seven entities in the house. I just counted. I remembered another one that they remember.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a story that's always intrigued me because you know
Mhm.
we saw firsthand. I know you got to see the very end of it. I wish
Right.
you could have got more involved with that
Mhm.
because the last time you were there isn't the time I got shoved. The only time I've ever been physically dominated like that in a case
Right.
was when I got pushed that same night, and of course two other people got shoved that same night,
Mhm.
and you know it was you could see it, you could sense the tense or the change in the room. I mean, you saw it, you felt
Yeah.
it.
Oh yeah.
I remember. you
I remember that night when we pulled up.
Yeah.
Excuse me. When we first pulled up there, it was the first time. It's not the first time I had experienced this,
Sure.
but the first time in a long time that I had experienced this. But we pulled up, and I set foot out of my truck in that yard, and I mean, I almost instantly had a migraine
I was gonna say
headache
that,
because it was like standing in a room surrounded by 1,000 people all yelling at me. It was terrible. It was terrible, and it was like that the whole night.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of
It
our
was-
investigators, I wouldn't say got possessed, but got influenced by it, I guess. Because
Mhm.
I remember she just kind of sat on the couch and zoned out.
Mhm.
We were talking about it yesterday, as a matter of fact. Just remembering that case, and she's like, "Yeah, I just remember sitting there zoning out, and the room got really heavy because we all, you know, we formed like I won't say a bond. We formed a circle group, you know, and just kind
Mhm.
of we're trying to protect this family or whatever we could do, and it
Right.
was just getting heavy in the room, and this thing was just circling around us.
Mhm.
It wouldn't come in the circle, but it was just intense. It was bizarre. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole thing, and I just remember you saying my spidey senses are tingling.
Yeah.
Because it was going crazy, and you had the headache, like you said, the migraine. Yeah,
Yeah,
It was just,
yeah.
it was a heavy, intense case. I mean, up to the very end, and apparently that's just like I said once again the first
Yeah.
half of the story. We don't know
Yeah.
the second half, and
Yeah.
we may never get that closure to that
Mm.
case.
I'm gonna keep reaching out and see how she's
Mhm.
doing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I follow the family a lot and talk to them, and just
Yeah.
you know, I don't ever bring that up unless they want to talk about it because you know I don't want to
Yeah.
rehash old
I
memories.
don't.
You know.
For a lot of cases, I don't ask them.
Mhm.
You know, I ask how you're doing,
Yeah,
but I don't want
same
to,
here.
you know, poke and ask, you know, deep questions about, you know, you still
Right.
getting tickled or whatever. You
Mhm.
know what, you still getting poked and prodded. You know what, I don't know what's going on. You know, I'm not asking them questions. What's going on? So.
Yeah.
You know what, guys? It's
Yeah.
about time for a break, but
Ready?
just right quick before we go to a break, we had one statement, and then there's another question that we can come back
Yeah,
to
I
after
saw
the
that.
break. But Stephanie said, so more times than not, once you educate and bring to light the knowledge to the person or family, they usually accept it. My experience, more times than not, is as soon as you give them evidence that they're not crazy,
Right.
Yeah.
then they can move forward and learn from there. It's just, and you guys may have a different opinion. I don't think you probably do, but my experience in all the years I've been doing this, the vast majority of the time people call us, they just want to know that they're not crazy.
Sure.
Yeah, and it gives them strength. It gives them
Mhm.
power to actually focus on what they're going to do. you
Right.
know?
Like,
Like,
what's the next step in their life? Now that we have confirmation that there's something
Mhm.
here.
Yeah.
Now
Well,
what
I
do you do
think
with
a
it?
lot of times it shows that it's not harmful either.
Yeah.
It may be kind of pesky and,
Yeah.
you know, but
Yeah.
it's not going to
It's-
harm them.
it's like Nicole. She had her first experience and she was terrified. Very next day, she was like a freaking fighter, just wanting to go back in and like just do it again and again and again, and couldn't
Mhm.
wait for something else to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was awesome. People get that. You get that confidence after you do it. After
Right.
you've been scared shitless. Now you're like fighting. You're like, I want this to happen. I want this to happen.
That was a big difference, like when we were in that one place when I got, nudged to the side, ended up in the hallway. I think, 5 years ago, I ran out of the house.
Probably quit maybe, or
Yeah,
that,
but
yeah.
now I just got up, went into the other room, and was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, why'd you do that?
Yeah.
Talk to me." Instead of just flipping out.
Yeah.
And
Right.
So you learn a
And
lot.
that's kind of what the
with
family
time.
we do for the
Kind of
families
get
too.
conditioned to it.
Yeah.
So.
That's what we do for the families. Is understand, okay, yeah, there's your answer. You know,
Mhm.
yes, symptoms there. Okay, now what do you want to do with it?
Right.
Where do you go from here? So, and then the other question we can address when we get back, maybe, or you want to add?
Yep.
Yeah. So we want to keep talking about it.
Yeah, let's take
Yeah.
a quick break,
Yep.
and we will, Danielle, we'll get to your question when we come back from the break. In the meantime, take a moment, like, share, subscribe, hit every button you can except for the thumbs down button. Stay away from that one, and help us get the word out. And we are going to take a quick break, and we will be back in just a little bit. hope everyone enjoyed the soothing music, as Danielle said.
We can't hear it, so
Next time you should play
we'll take
Bebop.
your we'll take your. That's not For anybody at home, if you ever went into Roast's bedroom, he has Hanson posters up in his bedroom,
That's
above
right.
his bed, and the not so closeted Hanson fan. He's the one and only. Right before break, we did have a question come through that we were going to address, and the question was from Danielle. She said, "How do you know for sure what you're talking to is a little girl or a human spirit, and not something trying to hurt you?"
You don't.
That's actually a very good question.
You don't.
Yep.
That's why we continuously do it, and that's why we ask so many questions. That's why we go in different directions with it
Right.
and try to figure out. And that's the reason why we also interview the clients. We do a background check on the location just to see, what we can find out from anything.
Right. Yeah, because I've always had my opinion on that. And I've said it, I don't know how many times on the show. I should just push record on my usual things because it's stuff we beat to it, into the ground. But I've always thought with, especially darker things, and on the other side of things where you say, how do you know if that's a human spirit or not? Well, if it's a darker entity, possibly, and I kind of touched upon it before the break, but maybe it's portraying itself as a little girl to gain your trust because like I've told you guys before, what is more, I don't use the word soothing, we use that a couple times,
Vulnerable.
but I mean, well, not even vulnerable, what is more inviting is a little girl versus maybe a little boy,
Yeah, less threatening.
to gain your trust, it's like, well, a little girl in a dress seems less harmless than a boy with a baseball bat or, whatever is my
Yeah.
theory. I'm trying to paint a picture here, but so a little girl, if I'm a demonic entity or whatever, a malevolent spirit, I'm going to portray myself as a little girl to somebody, to whether it be a child or whether it be to a living adult, that, oh, hey, look at me, I'm
Yeah.
innocent, can we be friends, kind of a thing.
Well, we
And-
kind of had that talk too,
Mhm.
because I said, I've never seen a child, and when everybody, oh, it's a little girl in a white dress, and I'm like, how many times have you heard that? And it's not that I'm discrediting
No.
people, but it's just like you hear that all the time, and it's like, are you
Right.
sure it wasn't red,
Well,
blue?
it's the
Why is it
same.
always
It's the
white?
same thing as it only happens on Halloween.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
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 Well,
Well-
go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think a lot of it may not be a blue dress, may not be a white dress. Maybe it's because I've seen it in the movies so many times. You think of like The Shining with the little girl twins.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're twins and
They're
blue
like-
dresses and they're freaky, Well,
Well,
Or you
my
see,
mind's a blue dress.
or you see
Oh,
a figure like a girl or a woman. Oh, maybe it's just your brain that just
Mhm.
flashes what you're seeing.
trying to process what you're actually
Trying to
seeing
process
in the
just
moment.
that moment, and you're thinking, well, it's a dress. Well, what color was it?
Mhm.
You're trying to think about, well, did I just see that in the light? Did I just see that in the dark?
Right.
It's our own brains trying to process the situation too.
Right.
Yeah.
Going back to what the actual intent of this question, I mean,
Sorry. Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion,
Yeah.
if you look at historical cases, some of the more famous historical cases, things that I can't believe I'm going to say this, things like Ed and Lorraine Warren worked on.
Right.
I'm not a fan of theirs, but I mean, they did some legitimate work.
Of
Well,
course.
Why aren't you a fan?
I just am
Hollywood.
not. But that's another story altogether. So, but I mean, you go back and look at some of that stuff and do the research on it. Very oftentimes, the malignant, inhuman entities will manifest themselves as a child, especially a young girl, to start with. And then it kind of morphs and evolves from there as the trust is gained. And, oftentimes there will be a grandfather type figure involved. Other times, sometimes there's a motherly figure involved, and things just kind of morph through this almost a pattern. Before and then once it reaches the end of that pattern, that's when the dark stuff hits.
Yeah.
They've got the trust gained and they're able to operate on their level, the things that they want to do, and that is to dominate the people involved.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of what we were talking about earlier with that granola case. How do we know it wasn't more than just a little? Jason said 7 that he could count
Yeah.
on, or count, which in that in itself has a significant meaning. I am 7.
Right.
You want me
Or-
to name them off what they were?
What 7 in the house? Or
No, all the different figures.
you can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
why not?
okay.
I'm gonna pick it-
So
go from
so there's a little girl,
there.
Mhm.
Right.
blonde hair with a scar on her face.
Mhm.
No description of what she was wearing. Just a little girl.
Mhm.
But there's also, before we go on, little girl, she could never see the eyes. It was like a dark.
Yeah.
It looked like she was on fire.
So it was like the dark-eyed children.
fire
Yeah,
or
Since
right.
it was a
something,
spirit,
Yeah.
at least, in a way.
Yeah. Okay.
So you had the little girl. Then you have the woman who came in to
Talking about the Indian woman.
Indian,
It
Native
was-
American. She was like
yeah.
she resembled a lot to their
yeah.
grandmother,
Right.
almost. So you had the woman that came in.
Mm-hmm.
You had the man that came in
The
to
company.
get her
Mm-hmm.
and say it's time to go. And
Right.
they leave. You had the guy in the garage.
Yep. Well.
The husband saw him.
Oh, because they always said it was red eyes outside looking in.
I kind of remember,
remember the
he said it
specific-
was like an old grandpa face.
Oh, really?
And that's what every time I went out there and I saw, because the garage was detached
Right.
off to the side, so you had to walk out to it. And he just remembers getting in his car and he saw this like old face like looking back at him, and it was just
That's
evil
right. Okay, I
eyes,
do remember
yeah,
that. It was kind
and
of red
fade
and
back,
That's right. Yep.
and it freaked him out.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got the overalls guy who came in from the back.
Oh yeah. Work
Like a
boots,
farmer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Every
Big
day.
hulking guy that would stand
Yeah.
there. Then you had the new older girl that came in
Right.
to attack the younger girl,
Which-
and then you have the baby that they would walk in and hear crying,
I forgot about
like an
baby.
infant.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, there might have been an 8th one because they had
Yeah.
the thing that, the thing I saw, which could be all in one and the same, where
Yeah,
it was this
could-
dark thing in the corner that would pace back and forth nonstop because it was pissed off that we were there.
I think that
And
might have been
that-
the hulking guy.
That
big
challenged
hulk-
that. Well,
big, I don't know.
Maybe I don't know. It challenged. That's what shoved us because I was calling it out. But after we got shoved, and I told one of the girls that was on the team at the time, I told her yesterday, as a matter of fact. After we got shoved, you can hear us like holy, losing our, just
Mhm.
surprised by the event. You
Right.
can hear our little girl behind us going, "Don't cry, mommy,"
Right.
to the
Mhm.
paranormal girl that was having like a kind of hyperventilating a little bit at the time.
Right.
So, which was eerie in itself, hearing that shit after we just got shoved. It's like, whoa, okay, what's that mean?
Mhm.
Because what was in front of me, I would have swore it was a dominating male presence. That
Right.
Was, and I'm like, I'm right here. You better come do something to me because I'm looking at you. Why you pacing? Why you mad at us? Give me some answers, kind of a thing, and not really antagonizing it, just demanding, kind of being more demanding towards it. And that's when we got shoved, But
Mhm.
the thing with the little girl, I want to go back to, you brought up a point. There was the older girl. There's a little girl with the scar on her face, the blonde girl, and then there's the older girl that she started seeing. The thing that I can't wrap my head around that whole thing is the girl that she first started appearing to in the first place. Started seeing the additional girls, like 2 girls, come into the room.
Mm.
It was the girl that she saw originally with the black eyes, whatever scar. It was like like she may have been in a fire or something. We could never figure
Right.
out what description. We never got a chance to interview the little girl because we didn't get them involved with our case.
Right.
The children were always gone in the house. We never
Mhm.
saw them. I never met them. But the older girl that was starting to appear, in addition to the little girl, she would come in and grab the little girl and like, come on, it's time now. Kind of like similar to the Indian or the male that would come get the woman.
Mhm.
But she was appearing to these girls, like, come on, and like forcefully, and they would disappear, she said, but all they would hear is then a blood-curdling scream afterwards.
Oh, wow.
Like the older one was doing something to torment the little girl spirits.
They said they made the comment, because I remember writing it down, that the
Mhm.
older girl would walk in and would walk up behind her,
Yeah.
look at the other girls in the bedroom in their beds, and says, "She must die now."
Yeah, it was something, it was real
And
forceful and eerie.
she would take, like, they would just disappear in
Like
front
she'd
of their
grab
eyes,
her or something,
but
yeah.
you
Wow.
hear a loud scream in
Like
the
the
room.
little girl getting tortured possibly, or something
Yeah.
Wow.
bizarre. And it was
Yeah.
just the weirdest, bizarre,
Yeah.
that in itself is like, what does that symbolize?
That's
What
what
does
that
stuck
mean?
with me.
Yeah,
when
it
I
was
heard that.
it was frightening at the same time, but also intriguing
Mhm.
at the same time. It's like, what does that symbolize?
Creepy.
Yeah, it's very
You know,
creepy.
the-
That's
what
very
what strikes me And I don't remember. I don't know. And maybe this did cross my mind at the time, and I ruled it out for some reason. I don't know. But that kind of strikes me as a multiple spirit situation where like we were talking about a while ago, you have the more dominant spirits that are malignant on the malignant end of the spectrum, and they're dominating in a negative way the spirits that are the
Positive.
yeah, the more benign spirits.
Right.
I don't know, and it could be. I mean, I've seen cases before where there's a mixture of inhuman and human spirits,
Right.
active in the location. It just, there's any number of things that could have been.
Sure.
Just
Yeah, it was just like it blew my mind when I heard that. I'm like, what? And then it just didn't know how to process that. You're like, is that really happening? Or
Right.
is it a vivid imagination? Had it been the first thing that happened when we went into the case, I'd have been like, okay, maybe not. Because I had my doubts going into this case. I'm like, and the reason I say that is because the little girl at the time had a situation tragic happen to her, and I always thought that the little girl she was seeing initially was just a projection of her mind as a best friend kind of a protection thing. I don't want to whatever happened in real life, I'm trying
Right.
to block out by forming this little girl in my mind.
Mhm.
I went in with that type of mentality, thinking, okay, this is a possibility. Not,
Right.
I don't have the problem solved, but then we got there and things just occurred and
Mhm.
weird things were happening, and it was just some of the stuff we caught and experienced. It was like, holy crap, my mind was blown. Like that is not what I expected.
right. Yeah.
I mean, we had, motion constantly in the house where we would. Well, for instance, we had a cell sensor set up in the middle of the hallway, which is, it's like an EMF for people at home. It detects EMF, and it also, beeps as things get stronger or, gets closer to it. So we had it set up in the house, in the hallway, with a set of paranormal investigators in one room, another one in the other room, matching, mirrors side by side, and the family was on the other end of the house. We hear this man, what we think is a man, come walking down the hallway and growl it, or not growl it, just kind of say something to us. Just whatever, in whatever language, just a noise. And the cell sensor, goes off and documents this. We're like, did you guys just hear that? And we're back and forth between the rooms. And then we hear from the other end of the other end of the house, the family go, guys, something out here is growling at us. So as we're hearing one thing, they're hearing in a different tone or voice or whatever, they're hearing growling. It's like, why do you let these people in our house, your house, whatever? We're trying to, this spirit, is doing this, but to us, it's presenting itself in the moment as, oh, I'm just a guy walking down the hallway, not growling at you guys, just making noise. And that's always blew my mind too. It's just like, well, how is it projecting two different things? On one end, you're hearing this, on the other end, they're hearing the exact opposite, and it's the
Right.
same spirit at the same time, as far as we know. But it was mind-boggling. I think you were in the other room, weren't you?
Yeah.
And then Claire and I were in this other room, and Ben, and you were with Brennan, I think, at the time, in that room. But it was just weird. So at the same time, how is that possible? Is
Right.
it the same spirit? Is it multiple spirit? Is it things
Yeah.
projecting out?
Well-
I mean, we were running into different things there, so.
Exactly,
Yeah.
I would think with the baby though, that would be a projection. Because
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's
It,
a
it only it
know-
only happened like once or twice.
Mhm.
That's it.
that's
Okay.
And they were coming in as they were walking into the room with groceries.
That's right.
They'd walk in and hear the baby crying, but they're like, "Oh, we don't have a baby."
Yeah.
So.
but that's because everybody else's opinion from my perspective, they're not here long enough to be attached and have something to fix or something that they want to stay around for. So it wouldn't be normal for a baby to still be
But it
still be here.
It may not have been a baby. It may have been
Oh,
something
no, I don't-
darker, and that was
I don't believe that it would have been. I
portraying
think it would
itself
have been
as such to
something
go.
else.
Yeah.
Doing that just for
It made me think also too. I remember one time we were on a break and there was nobody in the house. It was empty other than all of us in front of the house, and we hear banging, boom, boom, boom from the inside. We're like, what the hell? Did y'all just hear that? From the front door. It's obviously trying to get our attention. Didn't hear any voices, but I go back on the recorders and listen, and you hear the same banging, boom, boom, boom. It's going, hey, let me out. And it sounded like a male voice, but not like a gruff male, just a male voice, like sarcastically toying with us in a way. But the fact this thing is boom, 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 you know, on that door. Hey, let me out. It's like,
I forgot
what the
about
hell,
that.
man?
I forgot about that.
And this is the first trip we ever went there, by the way. So we also had 2 separate recorders set up in different locations, and it caught the same word on both of them. One was sitting in the main living room, and it's plain as day. It says "die," and then I had one set up in the bedroom at the end of the house, and you hear the same thing at a different time, not the same timestamps. That says "die." It's telling us to die, basically. Like, you know, why are you in our territory? So, like I said, the case was bizarre, and it's just, I wish we had closure to that case, but like we talked about, it affected them so greatly that they've had to part ways, possibly as a result, and we've never heard the end of it, but it continues to this day on, you know,
Yeah.
in 2 different locations now. So, yeah,
That's a shame.
it was bizarre. Yeah, and then like I said, Jeremiah got to come in the very last time we went there. We went there probably, God, I don't even know, maybe 6 times maybe or so over about a year's time. And
Yeah. I only went
Maybe
a couple,
more, I don't
I only
know.
went a couple times, but
I don't know. We were going out there quite more often than I probably remember, but yeah, 'cause I tell stories like I wasn't there for that. I'm
Yeah.
like, I thought you were there.
Yeah.
So and then I thought Jeremiah went twice. He went once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I was just there once.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I wasn't there when he went.
Oh, see, I thought you were there on
No.
that too. So I didn't know. But it just all wraps into one crazy, you know.
Yeah.
Wow, what are we witnessing here? And it was Jeremiah that pointed out. I was like, you know, guys, I think this is poltergeist, and it had every sense of it because you know things were going missing, religious artifacts were going missing, and still never been found, and it liked to toy and taunt us a lot. And I know that because
Yeah.
some of the actions we had, and
Now remember, one of the things that kind of turned me on to that thought was that some of the activity, or a lot of the activity, seemed to center around one of the girls, an adolescent or pre-adolescent girl.
yeah, that's the one I was
and
saying.
that's
Yeah.
that's kind of one of the hallmarks of the classic poltergeist.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, it was intense, man. And I would love to know. Like I said, I went to the house. I went to the house recently because it's out, you know, out of town. I was passing through town. I stopped in to see, and I was hoping to run into. In some ways, I wanted to run into the owner, but in some ways, I didn't want to because I didn't know what his mind frame is. If he's still in the house and this thing's controlling, affecting him, you don't know what kind of frame of mind he's going to be in. But,
right.
But I kind of wanted just to touch base and say, hey, you know, how you doing? But just made my peace with him and moved on. So, but
So was he actually there?
No,
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 oh,
he
He,
wasn't.
he, he,
Okay.
didn't, he didn't make contact too.
I was hoping because there was no cars in there or anything on the driveway where they was parked, and I know that obviously the wife had moved on to a different state, and no, there was nobody there.
But the man still lives there.
No, as far as we know, she says he did.
Yeah.
Because it was a family house that was passed on to him.
Yeah, we don't know much more.
Yeah.
I mean,
So it's probably safe to assume that, and it's a small town. There's like it's maybe 4 blocks by 4 blocks, even that if you're lucky. It's
Yeah.
there's nothing there other than homes basically.
Yeah, because wasn't in the beginning you said he was very talkative, very active with you guys?
He was
Is that
timid.
right?
He was very timid. I mean, as far as his actions, he would, you know, he was curious of what's going on, but he was also like afraid of it. It seemed like
And then all of a sudden
he became more dominating, I guess, whatever the word is. He just wasn't as afraid, and it's one of the, like another case we talked about off camera where we said, you know, it had some weird things occur where they wouldn't, like he wouldn't talk to us anymore, but she would. She would call us out constantly, and said he's changing a little bit. You know, I think it's affecting him. You know, he's becoming more aggressive. You know, in his demeanor, which wasn't like him. She said, you know, so maybe it's controlling him little by little.
interesting.
So, I don't know.
He'd recognize you guys, wouldn't he?
Would
it's
he?
been 6 years
Would
or,
he? I
or
don't
more.
know.
So
Yeah. He would think so. I mean, but we went out there enough, but it doesn't mean if he's not in the right frame of mind, you don't know whatever has gone on from his life to this day, you never know. So, were you gonna say something?
Nope.
I thought you were starting
Nope.
to pause and say something. No, these are all great questions. People were asking about different things, and if you have any more, please. We're monitoring everything and seeing if you have anything else. Let me see if there's
what's
anything.
next?
Michelle, you had a question you wanted to bring up. You remember what you were going to say? And
Oh,
so-
I had, well, one I was just thinking, because you made a comment on a non-human entity.
Uh-huh.
Where do you think, or do you know, where did they come from? When did they start? have they always been here? Or how did they
Oh
begin?
boy, oh boy. But that's a whole other can of worms, Michelle.
Good job,
Wow.
Michelle.
That's a big
That's what I'm
question.
here
That could be like a whole episode.
It could.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
has been.
So,
At
okay,
times.
my
Similar.
thought on it. Okay, there, and then, oh goodness gracious, where do you start? It
Since
just,
the beginning of time.
Well,
Exactly. That's
you know,
what I would say.
It also depends on your belief. I mean,
Exactly. That's
because
it.
There's a story behind it.
Yeah.
That whatever. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Most paths of belief and spiritualities, religious, sects or whatever it is, however you want to put it, they're going to have stories of what we refer to as inhuman spirits. Whether it be, a lot of them call them demons, in some other, in some other religions and faiths, there's no difference between a demon and a god. There's even in some other the things that more closely relate to in the Christian faith, angels. There's no difference even between those and a god, and so it just there's no way to really know
What they were thinking.
exactly.
Because fire and brimstone was actually more or less a volcano happening. An earthquake was the end of the world, or
Right.
illnesses or plagues were brought on by the gods.
Right.
And all this stuff. When it was all could have been today, as we've learned and grown up in life. In a
natural
civilization
disaster.
and stuff. It's
You know.
stuff is just. It is what it is. We've been able to figure stuff out.
But if
As a
if
race.
if these most. Oh, hi.
Now you did it. You pissed them off. Way to go.
I know.
Most,
I'm sorry.
yeah. Most, in my belief, most legends have some sort of a root in reality. So if people, through the ages have witnessed or seen
I'm sorry.
various things, and this is how they explained them, there's no.
There's no way of knowing when
There,
they started.
exactly. I mean, there's things that go back to some of the. I mean, okay, so the Sumerians, some of the oldest civilizations on Earth, had legends of spiritual beings that were more beasts than anything else. And that sounds a lot like some of the Native American, lore. The Firebird, the Wendigo, all of these things very well could be local versions of the same thing. So this stuff may go back to, Big Bang time or
Yeah,
or
yeah.
further.
Yeah, it's like where did they? Is it all the energy that comes from the humans that make evil, demonic? Is
There's
that our evil? That's
there's I can't remember what it's called, but even in the Jewish mystic traditions, there are examples of just exactly that, where something, if someone believes in something so hard, it can actually come to life and become its own entity.
Manifest.
Yes. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe we did. There's no, it's no secret that human beings are, kind of a wicked species. So
Well, there's the story of the woman who was seeing the apparition of a little girl in her house every night. Spirit was doing the same thing over and over and over again, and was playing in the room, was running down the stairs, was running out the door, was seen out at the door, wanting back in, and just every night it was happening. And come to find out, when they investigated a little further, that little girl was her,
An
living in the
older
house.
woman
Older woman,
projecting herself as a little girl.
because she, after remembering what had happened to her in that same house, she was projecting a very fateful night where her father attacked her. And she was playing in her room. She ran from him downstairs, ran outside. How is that possible? Well, somehow her spirit, her soul, whatever, if you believe in it, was being projected out. Like a movie reel, basically. Who's to say we're not doing that ourselves?
There's a story, and I don't remember if this was in one of the Jason Hawes and Grant Wilson books, or if it was in a.
That's the one I was talking
That's what
about.
you're
That's
talking
the one
about.
I was just talking about.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So the okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, you're fine.
No.
He didn't say that when we started. It.
Sorry.
We talked
No.
about it before, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm just saying that there's that chance, because I mean, when they figured it out and they went to her friend's house and saw this picture on the wall that was of these two girls, and Jason and Grant had just been at the house and had actually seen the spirit, and they're like, "Who the hell is this?" And they're like, and she's like, "Oh, well, that's me and her. That's when we were like 8." And the lady's in her late 40s now, 50s or whatever, and living in the same house as she was being attacked. I mean, are we projecting everything? Why are we doing stuff that's like just
This is all this
replaying?
coming from us.
Who's to say that that's not possible?
Right.
Right.
Who's to say that what you're seeing isn't that? You know, you're just getting a projection of something else, or even possibly from you, or your past life, or this or that. You don't know at all. Nobody knows.
You know, I have. Well, that we're not going to talk about that now.
I'm saying you don't know.
That's an off the
I'm
record discussion.
not saying you don't know, because you don't know 100%. Otherwise, you wouldn't be curious about this either.
I don't know that I'm as much curious about it as trying to expand some things. I guess that goes back to how I was raised and the things that people would say to me, and about the things that I do. And this is about more about knowing that.
So you have
that
your
it's
own
not-
agenda to
I
it.
have my own agenda. I do.
Okay,
I
so
do
you
have
have
my
your
own
own
agenda.
agenda to it.
Mine is less curiosity and more trying to come to terms with myself.
Well, for
and
me,
help
that's
other
not being
people
able
at
to
the
do
same
that.
time.
I can't do that. So therefore, I have to see it from my perspective of what's going on for each individual person, and see what's going on, and try to explain what I'm seeing, what they're telling me, what they're seeing, and stuff like that. That's why I do what I do.
Mhm.
Well,
and everything.
Yeah.
and that I can understand, because it's like I've said to you guys,
Mhm.
I can't prove anything. I got nothing.
Yeah, and that, and you know, and we
And-
can't prove except what we captured. That's the only
Yeah.
way we can
Right.
actually prove and say, well, this happened, this was said, this was done, this was caught. Explain it, and you know, no one can.
Yeah.
So
And it's the
I mean-
trust we have, and I believe what you telling me, or you
yeah,
telling me.
yeah, basically.
That's where you messed up, Michelle. The line didn't finish tonight. I just repeat the same story over and over in my mind, so I gotta practice it. No, I'm kidding.
But
No, we've seen a lot
Yeah.
of weird stuff. I mean, documented it and
I mean,
best
I
way we
mean,
can.
you know, I mean, we've got things on video that we're sure that could have been paranormal, and then come to find out it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was, explainable and
Right.
easy. But
Right.
We're the opposite reverse thing where we caught stuff on there we can't explain and still can.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing in the Raptors. What-
Yeah.
what was
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
because that
yeah.
doesn't make any sense, because you had collaborated people in the room that
you know,
a thing that was up in the rafters being caught on camera, but not fully seen by eye in the room at the time, because it was just like a mass or shadow or
Right.
mist pulsating.
Well, the only person in the room that had any clue of where it was a guy that had the same kind of gift you do, and he
He's
just happened
the-
to be the one
with the camera,
behind the
right?
camera. But there was no physical eyes laid on that thing until we called it a night and turned the lights on, and I saw the shadow that should have been up here, down here, because the light was coming from up underneath. So the shadow should have been up here if it was going to be cast, but it was down on top of the floor and just kind of slinked back up to the wall.
Ew.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy.
But I can guarantee you, just even though I wasn't there, that's not you in the video because you don't move that quickly.
Mm-mm.
Because this thing moves like
Yeah.
super fast.
Yeah.
Now you're both bald, but I think you had hair at the time.
But he doesn't give
Maybe
off.
not,
He doesn't
no.
give off eye shine though.
Yeah.
No, you don't give off eye shine unless
Right.
you're a lizard man or something like
Which
that.
No,
very
no, not the last time I checked. So. Well, it's not even in the right place to, if I should, we need to pull that video on a copy of that video onto the laptop sometime so we can kind of go through that step by step so
Right.
people can see what we're talking about. But it's not even in the right place to be me because I was sitting on the corner of a wall, and that thing, I can show you that thing is actually about 2 foot back from where I was sitting. I know because I actually had my legs hanging down the other side of a wall.
Yeah.
So,
Well, in
the way
in
I
the
was
actual
sitting.
video that I saw from 2 other people,
Yeah.
which was the original video at their house. Yeah, that thing moved from the back, and you could see it grab the rafter, each one, and then the back of its legs were like coming behind it, and it just went like this, but you could see the arms come down, and then it just looked down at you guys,
Yeah.
and then it just took off.
Yeah.
It didn't look human at all.
No.
And it probably wasn't.
Well, I mean, it
It was
it
not.
looked more human than it did any animal. Because a lot of people say, well, wasn't it a raccoon or something
No,
like that?
no.
You know.
If you see the actual video, there's
Well, I
no
know.
raccoon.
I try to
That-
explain
that
it to
thing's,
everybody,
like,
too.
Long and
I try to explain the scenario and story to people, and they're all like, "Well, eye shine, so it had to been an animal or a cat.
Right,
You guys
yeah,
are just
no.
mistaken." And I'm like, "Well, you can kind of tell a difference on a video camera.
Yeah.
If a cat's looking down at you but when this has a head, shoulders, arms, and you can see
Yeah.
it moving, and it
Definite
looks down, it's
humanoid
looking
shape.
back
So.
and everything, and looking down with the neck and,
And the
head
way it
and
turns its
everything.
head.
Yeah.
We need to
disappeared.
somehow
It
get-
blinked. It blinked.
We need
That's
to
what
somehow
always
get
creeped
the
me out the
original
worst.
video.
It blinked.
Well, like the
See,
way
I think
you
I've
said,
seen it
like you
once,
said, the
but
way it
it's been a
moved, it
long time.
raised its.
Yeah, you just saw the
Yeah.
little clip.
It was like his elbows
Yeah.
were up here,
Yeah,
and
it
it
just.
just.
Yeah, I've got to get that hard drive
I know we
to
talked about
Best
it.
Buy and get all that stuff pulled off of it. The hard drive's fine. It just
Yeah.
I don't have a computer to put it in anymore. So,
Right.
but yeah, it's
Remember, I do. We talked about this. Remember?
Yeah, yeah.
You need to come down and we can see it. We need to do it one of these days.
Yeah.
So, yep.
so.
Now, see, that's one of those things where I would have said, you know how I say, if I see something like that, I'm going to knock you down, get out. You might want to be behind me.
Just the shoulder going across
Oh,
your
man.
face.
Let me bring us back around because I don't know that we ever actually answered Daniel's question.
No, probably not.
How do you know if it's a human spirit or something more sinister?
Well, we did at the very beginning. We don't know.
You don't.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
That was easy.
That we said it at the beginning.
Mhm.
We actually don't know, Danielle. It's one of those things. That's why we investigate and why we do
Mhm.
all the talking or asking. You know, we can't believe what people tell us or what they think they see because we have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, but I bet you guys could clear it up for her just a little bit more. I think, what she's trying to say is, like, for instance, we'll get people that go, oh my God, I've got a dark entity in the house, and then come to find out it's a grumpy old man that's just pissed off.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
we've had
but-
that.
yeah,
We've
But,
had
the,
that
but
example.
the question is, I think what she's asking is, how do you know what it is? The thing is, we don't know. That's why we're continuously should investigate things
Mhm.
because, like Halstead, it keeps changing apparently, and we go to other places, it keeps changing. In Granola, it kept changing. 7, 8 entities all in one house.
Right.
We're still trying to, if we could still go there, we would still
So,
try to work on that.
Let me ask this, Jeremiah. We go in, we've done some investigating, and I ask you, Okay, so do you think this is a grumpy old man, or is this something darker? I think you would give me more of an answer than I don't know.
Well, you have to keep in mind at that point it's going to be a best guesstimate.
Right. Which goes back to what Jason was saying, you gotta just investigate more.
You do, and that's what I'm
Exactly.
saying. I'm not saying I hate
Right.
the I don't know.
Yeah.
You know how much I hate the I don't know?
How much?
How much I hate the I don't know. So much that I don't want to go to another hospital in my life because I hate the I don't know
Yeah.
answers.
Right.
But honestly, you can't figure something out in one visit.
Right.
You
True.
can't, and that's what people need to actually understand, is that you can't do anything in one
Right.
visit. We've got to be able to come back more than one time. We're not going to go to your house in one evening for a short amount of time and then expect all the answers.
Definite,
And-
detailed, absolute. This is what it is.
And then you go and do and go get a priest the next night, stuff like that. You
Mhm.
whatever you want. That means you're not taking anything literally or seriously
Right.
from
That's what
us.
you're going with.
But
That's why I laughed.
you've got to do more investigating. You
Mhm.
got to trust a group of people that are coming in for you. Listen to what they're doing. Watch what they're doing.
Right.
And figure it out together, because we're just meeting you for the first time. We got to figure out your story. What's going on here at the house? Do a background check at the house. I mean, hell, there could have been a multiple murder,
Right.
4 years ago that we didn't know, and we're walking into this place and not knowing that there's I still go back to the first time I went to Hutchinson and did that house where there was a murder in the house, documented. The guy's in jail, and there's the blood stain on the ground, still in the concrete in the basement where it is.
Right.
It just plays with my head, because I was new and I was just still sitting there, and things happened in the house that I could not explain. And then after on audio or on video from the camera in the kitchen or dining room / all that, we leave the house. We go outside to have a smoke break because everybody needs some
Not everybody.
break. But we went outside. There's nobody in. I saw on video. You see me and Ben leave.
Mhm.
We're the last ones out the door. There is a grown woman who died there, was murdered, but on video you hear just a few moments after we leave, you hear a child that goes, "Bye."
Wow.
Ew.
It's like
Yeah.
we don't know what is there,
Mhm.
so that's why you got to continue to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we caught a male
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah. I mean,
And
I think
it didn't
there's
make sense.
there's a lot to that as well, because sometimes a lot of times when we go into cases, people have already done some sort of research.
Yeah.
And they may have uncovered the fact that someone died violently here, or old Doc Henderson died peacefully in his sleep at 95 years old, and that must be who we're seeing or whatever. He
Right.
died in the living room down there. That was one of the stories at the project house, by the way. And that's but that's what people make that assumption, that leap, that's what's going on, because I mean, and it's not unreasonable, because that's in black and white right in front of them.
And they live there, so
Exactly.
maybe they're
Well,
piecing it together and they're trying
you-
to come up with
You
rational
guys did
explanation.
see an older gentleman at the
Yes.
front door, so maybe
Yes.
it's him. Maybe
Yes,
it's not.
exactly,
What if it
exactly.
is? What if it isn't?
But that's again reinforcing what Jason said. That's exactly why the continuous investigation is so important, because how many other things did we uncover at the project house? You
Right.
know,
Exactly.
there was the constant presence of the little girl. She
Right.
never did morph or evolve. It was the same voice every time. We had the young lady who always appeared wet. She had red curly hair and she appeared wet. Don't know what that was about.
Right.
We had
Yeah.
the shadow thing in the rafters. That was the first place we ever saw the pin laser lights. It was just constantly.
And sometimes it's not always about how quickly we can go to an investigation, do it, and then burn them a disc to give them what we caught, and say, "Here you go," because
Right.
we're not giving them any answers.
Right,
We're not
right.
doing anything.
At that point, the most we're going to be able to do is say, yes, you have activity here.
Yeah.
We can
And
confirm that you have activity. We can't confirm anything else.
if we spend an
No.
evening there, I'm pretty sure instead of burning a disc, we can pretty much go over that night with them and say,
Mm.
"You got activity here.
Mhm.
This needs multiple more.
Right.
You know, if you want to get to the bottom of this, we have to have more time. We have to have more time."
And I think that's where people get lost in it. But and I, you know, it's going back to my bitterness on the Hollywood sensationalism.
Taps Ghost Hunters became like CSI.
Hmm.
How quickly everything
On
happens.
TV.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get DNA
You
results
go,
back
you get
in
it,
3
you
minutes
do it,
and
bam, you do it. People
Yeah,
don't know that it
bullshit.
took 3-4 times to do it
Mhm.
and do it. What
Well,
were you
they
gonna
would
say?
stay there sometimes, what, 3 or 4
They're,
days?
they're usually
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
minimum
We
3
go in
days,
there
probably
for
not a week.
5 hours.
Yeah.
but what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say too, and different people pick up different things. Sometimes the entities are drawn to a certain person.
Yeah.
So, and that's a reason for, multiple visits and different team members.
Right.
So,
You never know what, he may pick up something that I'm not picking up.
exactly. Yeah.
Or
That's
they
why
might-
the Halstead home has been so fascinating, because every time we go,
'Cause,
it's
well,
something
you're
different.
I've only been there the 2 times. The one
Mm.
time for the reveal, and then you took me another time to see it. But watching you, Rose, watching you expand how you're seeing things and interacting with things, it's pretty cool to actually watch that happening. And you're seeing and picking up things more and more in the house. That is just awesome, because you've had a chance to go back and learn it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Not what you're doing, but the story of that place and everything. And that's what it's investigative work. It's what it is.
Yeah.
Investigative work is not going to your house one night, giving you an answer, and saying the next day, "Love to hear what you have. Can I have it? Can I have it? Can I have it?" We have nothing but to tell you that there's activity. Would you
Right.
like, can we set this up more for you?
Hmm.
Because a lot of times when you bring a bunch of people in, it goes dead. It's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
And that's
Mhm.
true. And
Yeah.
that's the other that I was thinking of while you guys were doing that, talking about that, is that sometimes it's just like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm
Yeah.
showing myself
Yeah,
to you guys. Who
when
are
you,
you?
When you take
You
4,
know?
5, 6, 8 people, it can.
Hmm.
And then there's other times where it's like just becomes alive.
Yeah.
And like
You
wants
never
to,
know.
Yeah.
You never know. It's different every time.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean you have to do your investigative work with it, but we have to have the opportunity to do it. And no CSI or NCIS or whatever you want to call it, that it just doesn't happen that quickly. And I get tired of, I guess, how quickly people want that return
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
on that, with an answer
Mhm.
of what it is, who it is, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
You want a complete story. You want to figure what's going on in your house that's built in the 30s, 40s. You say you have all this happening.
Hmm.
We barely had anything happen our first night.
Right.
Do you want to continue this, or do you want to just call it good and us come up with something for you?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I hate that. I mean, it. Of course, it all goes back to what the client wants, but from an investigative standpoint, just like you were saying, I say that a lot, but I mean, I do. I repeat you guys a lot. But from an investigative and research standpoint, the longer lasting, more involved investigations that go on. So, look at Brandon Callahan. How long did Tahlequah last for him? It's
Right.
what, 3-4 years.
Something like
Oh,
that.
jeez.
At
At least.
Yeah.
And that's
You know?
just not. It's going back. He went
Yeah.
back multiple weekends.
Many,
in a
many
row.
times.
Yeah,
Not even
just-
counting the times with us.
Not
Yeah.
right. He
You
went on
know,
his own at
so-
times. He went with his team at times. He just kept going back. I mean,
And
it's a lot of hours there for him.
that's the way that the research end of this should be done.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, people just come to expect something different again because of Hollywood sensationalism.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's my opinion. Hey,
Yeah, so go ahead.
we are We have 7 minutes left,
Yep.
and so it's hot seat time. We have a question.
I saw that. I was going to say that. Go ahead.
Crystal McCarty asks, do you find that older areas, longer inhabited areas, have more things, example, downtown, Old Town, Delano area of Wichita versus Derby or Hayesville?
Well, this land has been here for millions and millions of years, and there have been all
What are you
kinds
talking
of...
about? It's only been here for 6,000.
Yeah, well, okay. But
Sorry, I
anyway,
had to throw that out there. You know.
so you
And
do
it's
not
flat.
know what happened
Oh,
on
and it's flat,
any,
sorry.
in any place.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
do not know.
Yeah, I mean, from downtown, yeah, you get older towns. You get older towns like Wichita or Delano. You know, you get that old feel just by the buildings and stuff like
Mhm.
that, and places we've been in. You know, you feel that kind of, like you say, that sticky feel. You know,
Right.
the things just attached to it, but. We've done cases in Hayesville, and we've done places, you know, and there's just stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't think it's really based upon like how old the city is or anything like that. There is crap that happened on the land, like you said, for thousands of years. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, how many we don't know. Like it could be out in Udall. There could have been a
Right.
whole slaughter of people
Right.
Right.
out in the old West. You know,
Mhm.
that died out in a field somewhere. There could be, who knows how many.
Right,
Wagon
and you also-
train, people
Yeah.
dying on the wagon train
Yeah.
and all that.
Well, you also got areas such as Dodge City, we'll say, for Boot Hill, that the original Boot Hill is not even where the current Boot Hill is. So,
Right.
I mean, just because it's this location doesn't mean you're going to have a bevy activity right there. I mean,
Right,
how much
right.
towns were developed in, you know, the main center of it was over here, actually, but
Yeah.
now it's over here on the opposite side of town.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you had
You know-
to take a pick, which one would you say is more active?
Don't know.
I would say they're
I won't
even.
answer.
I think
So,
you
I mean,
know
yeah.
when you run into because we did the show from the Delano district here not too long ago.
Yeah.
So let's just use the Delano district for example. It has a history of being a pretty rough place at one point in time.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think you know anytime you have a gathering of people like that and a rough history, you know, your odds are going to go up of having, I think, paranormal activity there. But it's not limited to just that. You know, I investigated a house back when I first started the team umpteen years ago. I investigated a house that was a year and a half old and caught some of the craziest stuff in there that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, we did a house
Yeah.
that was
brand new,
about a year old, a few months old,
Mhm.
and there was activity happening in there. You know, so and
Yeah, it's-
that was not even in Wichita.
Right.
That was actually in a.
Say it.
No, I'm not going to say it.
Oh, okay. 'Cause you can.
Oh, that was in Andover,
Yeah.
Mhm.
of all places.
yeah.
You know, so
I think just because a place is old, people tend to think that it should be haunted.
Right,
And
right.
then we do know that there were gun battles and stuff there.
Right.
And it's just our perception that it has to be.
Well, it's historical, and you know, you think how many times have you said it, Jason? History and the paranormal go hand in hand. You
Yeah.
know, and that's just an assumption that people make, but it's not limited to that. You know, and
Right.
people should understand that as well. It's
case in point, I've had people on the ghost tour on the bus telling me how they've had activity while working at Intrust Bank Arena
mhm.
late at
There's
night,
stuff on
and
that.
it's basically the amount of history that's on the land.
Right.
And it's what opened up in 2010,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, but they demolished history all right
Right.
there
Mhm.
and built this beautiful place, and now you know they've had activity. There's it
Mhm.
creeps a lot of workers out.
And I've also thrown out every time too. Once again, the soundboard I need right here repeats myself. But think about the building material they brought in to make that place. Where did those trees come from? Where did the concrete come from? The sand, the whatever, the machine, the Coke machine that was made. You know, that these you pops. Where does that all come from? It has to come from somewhere. Maybe we know that objects tend to hold energy. You know, and maybe it's attached to that specific thing. You don't know.
But then
aside from the land. Go ahead,
we
sorry.
were talking about this just last night about that house that I was in a few years ago, and I remember because I was talking to those couple of people, and it was a newer house, and I remember talking to you to Jason, and I said, it's weird because there's like this rancher guy in there. It's a new house, you know? And Jason said, he goes, well, where is it at? And I said, well, it's over here. He goes, oh, well, that was Chisholm Trail. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, for me, I wouldn't even thought of that, you know. But he's like, that's probably, he goes, that, and I thought, okay, well, that makes sense, you know. There
Yeah,
would be
I mean, you got-
cattle rancher
yeah.
guys going up and down there all the time.
Yeah.
But
All over there on Seneca and off over there, you know, you got the Chisholm Trail that
Yep.
went right through there.
Right.
All the ranchers
Right.
came in, you know, they come in to party and have their beer and
Mhm.
whiskey and stuff in Delano and shoot each other and you know, all that stuff. you
Right.
know? It's like,
Yeah.
But that was a newer home up
Yep.
by that, you know,
Yeah,
area.
it was.
All right, guys, we're gonna have to wrap it up here.
Yep.
all right.
So, thank you everyone that logged on and watched us tonight. We had a really good time. The questions were awesome. Let's keep that up. In the meantime, waiting around next week is Big 50. So, get those the suggestions for the show in, and let us know what you think. We'll be thinking and brainstorming on it too, and we'll do our best to have a good show for you. It should be awesome.
Absolutely.
So, in the meantime, don't forget to like, share, do everything you can. Help us get the word out about our show, and we will. Oh, you guys have anything else you want to say first?
Nope.
No?
No.
Good, yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, we'll see you guys next week.